are we doing? Hey, everybody. Oh, wait. Zazoo Plazz, Zazoo Plazz report, January 29th, 2023. And I forgot my little microphone. I do things differently to try to figure out what works and what doesn't work. See? So hopefully you can hear me while I'm setting this up. Yeah, so this is the second time. Well, the first, I was setting up just now. I have it balancing on a curb here, and the whole setup. I've got my little tripod here. The whole thing just fell into the parking lot, and I'm like, oh man! But luckily, my phone didn't break. That's a great thing, because it fell backwards. And here we have what's called in Connecticut, dirty snow pile. Ugh. Not too pretty. But yeah, we had a big, well, not a big snowstorm, apparently, but snow, which is fine with me. I don't get picky about it. You know, I like to get, this is the whole reason I live in Connecticut. Because I like the seasons, you know? So anyway, as I said, Leslie Bilodeau, Zazoo Plazz report for January 29th, 2023. And now that I have my act together, see, but, you know, I want to show you that no one's perfect, you know? No one's completely got their act together. Nobody. If they say they do, they're lying. So I'm in a Don Henley mood today. So I'm standing in a puddle of mud here, and so I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go home, and I'm gonna make buffalo chicken chili today. It's you know, I have it with like you make it in the Instant Pot. It's really quick. You put the chicken in there, and you put like the sauce over it. Cook the chicken, then like 3 minutes or something. And then after that's done, you shred the chicken, and then you like put all the other stuff in, and then cook it some more. So it's really quick and easy. And then you have it with buffalo, with blue cheese. I think I hear some people. I'm gonna keep doing my Zazoo thing. I will not back down. I will not go quietly. That's the Don Henley. Well, so as always, there's a ramping up process. That's the one I ultimately ended up finding, that song. But you know how we roll around here, so stick with me. It'll be worth it. Worth the ride. So I guess I don't know. I guess the Super Bowl's coming up next week. You know what? I really have to do something about this cord, because it's way too long. I have to do something about it, because it's always like falling apart, falling off, and you know, it just, anyway. All right, so now we're ready. I have to have something, like my Granny Bilodeau. She would have been 123 this past week, the 26th. I posted an old video of me talking about her, reading a little bit about the story about her in the Zazoo Plazz book. But wait, what was I saying? Oh no, God. Yeah. So she used to do this thing where, you know, she'd be with you, she'd be talking to you, you know, and she'd have always like a dress with pockets or something. You know, she used to wear those old-fashioned dresses with the crisscross shoes, and the, you know, her dresses. Sometimes they'd be like jumpers, you know, like the old 50s style housewife dress. You know, that's how she used to dress sometimes. And if she went out, she always wore, for Christmas, she had this black and white tweed suit with a red blouse underneath. And I'm looking at my pictures, and I noticed there are several years in a row when she must have just given up, because she kept wearing this. Well, she was 103 when she almost 103 when she died. So at a certain point, she just she kept wearing the same dress every Christmas. You know, might be like she might wear the skirt with like a sweater set, or she might wear it with the red blouse. You know, and I thought, you know, it's refreshing because you know I'm like that. I'm like, you know, I'm not 103. I got a lot of years left in me, and I will not back down. I will not go quietly, which is the Don Henley song, but 1989. But End of the Innocent. I'm getting to it. But the thing Granny used to do was she'd be talking to you, and her hands would be, you know, looking for something to do while her mouth was busy talking to you. You know, she had restless hands. She raised 4 children. She had a chocolate making business, and she was a brilliant seamstress. She used to make fancy gowns for rich people. You know, like my grandfather made false teeth for a living. But he did it. He made a good living. He made false teeth for people, like not like George Washington, you know, wooden teeth. He made, you know, like creepy real dentures. You know, so when my cousins and I were kids, especially those of us born in the '60s, you know, he would take us down to the basement and show us his false teeth. You know, it was creepy. But I won a prize in middle school in my science. I asked my grandfather if I could, you know, borrow some of his teeth. And I made a little display. I made one of those boards, you know, the kind with the hinges. My dad helped me make one. And, you know, I had a nice display. And I did a little thing, wrote up a little text about how he made his teeth. And I put some pictures. And I had the actual teeth, you know, displayed. It was creepy because they put them in, you know, he actually had them in people's mouth to make the mold. So, you know, so they made a decent, you know, he had a decent living. My grandmother, though, she had her own little creative businesses on the side. You know, she was always working on something. She made Afghans, you know, blankets and things for us kids. She was she had a green thumb. Everything, she'd go in her kitchen and it was always sunny and bright and cheery. And, you know, she had that old 70s wallpaper in there. But she had all these plants growing everywhere. And I thought it was, wow. I said, that's great. I didn't know what was in all those pots, but she had, you know, herbs. She had all kinds of funny little, you know, plants. Oh, there's the moon. Oh, moon. But, yeah, I think Granny's, she was an Aquarius, you know, and I have my moon in Aquarius. So any of you who follow astrology, you know, that's why I love my Granny, because she embodied, you know, what I loved, you know. So yeah, so she had the hands, you know. It's almost like there was one part of her that was talking to you, and she would always listen. She was very supportive of me and my, you know, whatever it was, whatever. You know, she was interested in astrology. She was interested in all things, you know, scientific and technological and, you know, plants and environment and all those things. There were many things I could discuss with her. She was amazing. You know, so Aquarius is, you know, into the future, you know. And so I'm still trying to figure out if the 4th house is your father or the 10th house is your father. Because you know, I think the 4th house is your father and the 10th house is your mother. But anyway, in the astrological chart, you know, 4th house is your house of your family and your ancestors, like Granny. It's where you come from, you know. It's like, it makes sense because that's your roots, you know. And your father's name is what, you know. It kind of makes sense. And then out in the world, see, then that's what you express. I guess that could be considered, well, or you can consider it that's your father because that's profession and that's the house of career, and your father kind of, but in my case, you know, it was both. You know, both my parents influenced the kind of, you know, work I do. which is, part, so I have Cancer and Capricorn. Cancer is, my midheaven. So out in the world, I feel, I seem to be the nurturing type. I go into, I used to work in offices. I'd be the one bringing the snacks, having the plants all over the place, listening to everybody's problems, knowing what was going on, who was going where, and what was, that's useful in an employee, or it used to be. So now I do that for my own business. And the fourth house is kind of like your private world, But for me, it's all the same. When I go out and, walk around in the world, that's kind of like, my career is more, because I spend so much time getting to the bottom of things, finding things to talk about, getting to the bottom of things that seem wrong to me, seem like they could be made more efficient, or maybe why do we do it at all? Making mistakes so I can talk about them to people out in the world, see? So, and that here I am standing in the mud. The more work I do in my on myself, on what's hidden, what's inside information, if you will. That's how this. I used to be I had my own financial planning business, financial services, sales, and my boss, who was the owner of the agency, gave me one Christmas, everybody got these earthenware crocks, they were brown, like, I don't know, I guess you could buy them, sometimes people make them, or they sell them at those country stores, and I unwrap mine and it says, inside information. Now that doesn't mean that I did, dishonest trades or anything like that. What it does mean is, well, when you're hanging out with those financial types, everything is a big joke. It's guys mostly. There's a few women, but you have to be tough. So he found out, that I'm the kind of person who likes to get to the bottom of things. I like to research. Now, I know things that other people didn't know. And I would use those to make the world a better place, which I'm still doing. So, anyway, when something bothers you, it kind of is in the best interest of the world if you say something or do something about it, What do we have? The Sermon on the Mount today. Wow. Let's see. Super Bowl's coming up next week. So I was getting. So this is my sermon by the Lamppost. I've always liked that Sermon on the Mount. It's so good. It's the whole concept of when you're striving for the truth, it can be so frustrating. If you're poor in spirit, right? You're feeling sad because you're not seeing results. You're out there talking about something that's passionate, close to your heart, and or you're hungry, or you're in prison. You don't have. And that doesn't literally mean prison. It could mean all of us are in some kind of prison, whether it's of our making or mostly of our own making, right? Our karma is our prison. Some of us are hungry, right? Hungry for truth, hungry for what is really going on. We're hungry for connection to God, to the source, to divine, energy. We're looking for whatever gives us that feeling of connection. If we don't have that, we're going to look for other things to fill the void, right? Poor in spirit. The way of the wicked he thwarts. He sustains orphans and widows, but the way of the wicked So, so what does this mean? So, when you have tough times, when you're striving for people to understand your truth, right? What you're trying to say, what you're trying to get across. But it's not the right time. People aren't getting it. They're not getting you. You know, what you represent. It's just hang in there. Because in the end, the good wins out every time. You know, boast in the Lord. Say, if you know what you're doing is in line with your values, what you believe to be true and right and beautiful, like that moth that's just flying around me. You know, you cannot lie down, Don Henley says. You cannot go quietly into the night. You have to go loudly into the night. Tell it to the snow pile. Yeah, so, you know, there's so many things. And then I was thinking, oh, I don't, for some reason, sandwiches keep coming to my attention. Maybe it's because I'm really hungry right now. But, you know, somebody was online. There are people trying to, you know, radio stations or whatever. They're all like, oh, you know, don't come to Connecticut because of this. And then the next thing is, oh, these are great things about Connecticut. I mean, you could say that about anywhere. So somebody was talking about, you know, things that people who live in Connecticut say or know that other people don't, you know, like if you're a local. And I've lived my whole life here, so they're like, oh, well, you know, we call sandwiches grinders. That's true. Growing up, it was always, you know, you got long pieces of bread, not the sandwich, the grinder roll, you know. The grinder roll is about 6 inches. Now we're getting ready for Super Bowl. You know, you can put it whatever, you know, some people call it a sub, some people call it a hoagie. I was brought up, it's a grinder. Then I went to Boston and they say grinda. My roommates, going out to get something to eat, you want a grinder and a tonic? Like, what the heck is a tonic? That sounds bad. That sounds harmful. I'm like, they're like, what kind of tonic do you want? I'm like, huh? Like, you know, Coke, Pepsi, 7-Up, you know, Sprite. Like, oh, soda. I want a soda, okay. Not the healthiest. They get me a Diet Coke, all right. And a tuna grinder turkey. So, anyway. Oh, I'm getting hungry. Now I'm going to be talking about food this whole time. All right. So, Don Henley. All right. So, I started thinking about like I said, the grinder, the sandwich thing. And then I got into, I don't know, all of a sudden, I started thinking about like the other day, you know, like Cheers, you know, like those kind of businesses, and how cool it is to support a local business, you know, a little sandwich shop. We had places, and when I was in college, and when we were down at the beach in Rhode Island, you know, those little places, you could go in and down the corner, and everybody knows the owner, you know, and they're making an honest living. Maybe they're in the suburbs, maybe they're in the city, you know, but you could be. And when I went out to Arizona, there's, you know, people, some mom and pop, you know, place they're making, and I found one little place, and everybody was there. All the people were there, like, you know, moths to a flame. Like, oh, you know, this must be, and it's like you could talk to a person and put in your order, you know, and then you had to wait a while, but it wasn't so bad. We had lots of places like that. You could be in the middle of the city, you know, and a total stranger, hungry and knowing nobody. I'm a stranger, right? But somehow, I always find these little, you know, places where somehow there must be angels or something. Somebody says, oh, you know, the food here is really good, or you see a sign or something and you go and it's down some side street and there's some real people in the kitchen and they're making your food and you can, tell them what you want and talk about your day. They hand you the food and you eat it and you go on your way and you feel it's not just the food that nourishes you though. It's when you keep going back to those places. You have within the biggest cities, there are little niches, there are little warm, cozy homes where you can go and be sustained, where people are just people and they're talking about life and you don't feel so alone. I've always thought it's one of my things in the world. I've always enjoyed entertaining strangers. My family too, but like I don't know, being finding myself eating alone. Nobody likes to eat alone, but I do. I go into a new city or something and I'll look for a little place where I can see the people cooking my food and I can talk to the waiter or waitress or whoever, serving person, and there's a warmth to that. And so, Don Henley, come down to the last couple of albums in the 80s. Said Sunset Grill. Now, that is a song that, even though I started off with I Will Not Go Quietly, I ended up back on Sunset Grill again. So I think it's both songs, really. I think it's I will not lie down. I'm strong enough to be weak, right? Shake it up. Shake it up. Have to turn it around. So on the one hand, that's always been a fascination of mine, right? These people who go into companies, tear things apart, turn them around, and make them better. You gotta tear things down sometimes before you can build them up better, And sometimes they're not gonna come back, Certain things are not gonna come back, but certain things will come back better. So I did some research and I find out Sunset Grill. I love that album. I played it on my cassette when I went down to Miami working in the early, like 1990, 91 I was there. And that album came out in the late 90s. Sunset Grill, I think, was on the Building a Perfect Beast, I think. Or was it The End of the Innocence? I'll find out. I Will Not Go Quietly is on The End of the Innocence, and that was his last album, solo album of the 80s. He's awesome. So, anyway, so I was driving around Miami, playing this over and over and over and over. Sunset Grill. And I'm driving around Miami, and I'm down at South Beach, and stopped at a light, and there's, I'm playing Sunset Grill, and this guy comes up to my car in Miami. It was like fall, like September, I think, maybe August. I don't know, it was summer when I was there, and it was every afternoon it would rain. So, the car get dirty. This guy comes out of nowhere, starts washing I'm at a stoplight, starts washing my window, and I was driving past, I was in kind of a sketchy neighborhood, and I'm like, what do I do? So, and then come to find out this happens all the time, in big cities like Miami. So I think I gave him a couple of bucks, and then went on my way. But Sunset Grill was playing on it, and I was driving toward the sunset. I was driving, probably west, I would think. And there's all these, kind of sketchy little, like, bars and places with bars on the window. You know the kind? With the bars on the window. So does that always blink, or is it telling me, I'm almost out of space? So I said, oh man, Sunset Grill. It's the guy, who's in there, the old man. He knows it's all the same, right? He's seen everything. And you're in there, and